Well, you know me, I'm a huge NASCAR fan, and I've got to have a NASCAR episode once in a while. So the Big D's hitting the green flag on all things NASCAR tonight. Before I bring in Sean, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. I think I've covered every sport today except badminton, but that's okay. Also, check out the Big D podcast for audio listeners, Spotify and Apple. So joining with me, the host of the Race School Thunder Hour. You catch him Fantasy Guru site, Sean Engel. So Sean, uh, have you recovered from the craziness of Sunday?
In some ways, I'm still kind of not fully, you could say. I'm just overall reviewing everything as it is because there was a lot to take in, especially if you were a motorsports fan this past weekend. You had the Monaco Grand Prix for F1, you also had the Indy 500, of course, and you had the Coca Cola 600 over in the NASCAR Cup Series. So, yeah, a lot to talk about, a lot to really digest for sure. There, Dylan.
Yeah, and there's also some big news when one of NASCAR's most high profile teams. Yesterday, it was revealed that Stewart Haas would be shutting its doors at the end of the 2024 season. The I don't know about you, but when I heard this news, I mean, I sort of knew it was coming, but I'm like, oh, everything?
Yeah, I I've had the suspicion, especially with the performance dip over the last couple of years, that Stewart Haas Racing was definitely on the downturn, and hearing all the different rumors and discussion about it shutting it down online as well, I did have the sort of expectation that it was definitely going to be happening sooner. But the part in particular that surprises me is the fact that the Xfinity Series program is also getting shut down as well, because there was not a lot of rumors or discussion on that aspect in particular of that being happening. I mainly was just hearing that, oh, the Cup team is going to be shutting down, and all four of the charters were going to be going. So, yeah, I thought SHR was just going to remain an Xfinity team, especially with that Ford backing. But the whole team, the whole organization's going under at the end of the season.
What do you think has happened to Stewart Haas? Because we all remember the great year Kevin Harvick had, where he won what 10 races, and somehow didn't make the championship four. And then Harvick won what twice his last 3 years.
Yeah, he won two races back in 2022. Those end up being the last two of his illustrious Cup career so far. And then Harvick, he won the 9 races back in 2020, as you mentioned there as well. But ever since 2020, this team's just been dipping in performance year over year. Harvick still was the driver that's been carrying this team with the sponsors and the performance. Although you could also say that some of the drivers did have flashes there, especially Chase Briscoe, who even won a race at Phoenix a few years back. So, yeah, it's quite a whole big development as it is with SHR just going under like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but maybe Stewart Haas reaches peak. I mean, of course, Harvick won the title in 2014. Remember what Stewart did? Last owner driver to win a title in 2011, that crazy tiebreak over Carl Edwards. But since 2020, it feels like the team has taken a nosedive. I mean, Eric Almirola won that crazy Loudon race where it seemed like all the Joe Gibbs cars wrecked. But see, I don't know if it's sponsored and money, or maybe a lack of ownership, because Gene Haas, of course, owns Haas F1, and Tony Stewart is racing like 800 times a year on drag racing team now. So maybe the ownership is not quite what you would see from Joe Gibbs or Rick Hendrick or Team Penske.
Yeah, the drivers themselves have stated that Tony Stewart and Gene Haas, they had like a very hands-off approach when it comes towards managing the teams. They mainly left it to a lot of other people, and they were talking about how Joe Custer, who's Cole Custer's father, he also was a big part in running the day-by-day operations of the team and had a presence in the shops there compared to Gene or Tony, who were basically investing into the team, but also off on their own ventures, especially since Tony used to be more and more involved with the team back years ago. But you could also say, and some people will also link back towards the time around 2021 or so, when Tony Stewart tried getting Stewart Haas Racing to sign Kyle Larson to the team, but they never were able to get that through because Ford ultimately denied the team going after Larson in order to sign him back when he was a free agent. So there's a lot of connections. There's a lot of different sorts of, you could call it developments that eventually led to where we are now with these closures of Stewart Haas Racing.
What do you think has been different with Stewart Haas? Because I mean, yeah, the drivers have changed, but I mean, it can't just all be the new car because we've seen. I mean, Hendrick Motorsports, yeah, they look great. Joe Gibbs, oh wait, Joe Gibbs is winning every other race that Hendrick's not.
Yeah. It could just be the ownership structure, as mentioned, the equipment as well. Even though they're considered a tier 1 Ford team over at Stewart Haas over the last couple of years, that the amount of equipment penalties that they've been getting over time has been a little bit more than the average team. So they probably struggle just adjusting with the new cars. There's been changes with the driver talent. We've had Eric Almirola exit. We've had Noah Gragson enter this year. We've had Clint Boyer exit the car after 2020 in order to do broadcasting, and then Chase Briscoe came into the picture right there. I mean, Stewart Haas Racing, it's kind of like what Roush Racing when they went through their downturn a little bit, where they had a lot of structure changes, a lot of driver talent changes. And without that veteran presence just not being there, and just some of the staff just not getting used to the different changes in the cars and the rules packages, even though we clearly saw that 2021 was also the beginning of a step down in performance as well, even though that was still under the old car too. It ultimately, I'd say it's just a combination of factors that really played a part into the downturn in performance there, Dylan.
And you know what also didn't help Stewart Haas losing a couple key spots? Obviously, the 10 call with Smithfield and the 4 call with Bush. I mean, when you don't have sponsorship dollars or dollars in general, you're going to suffer. And I feel like Stewart Haas suffer when you look at Team Penske. I mean, maybe not this year, but Team Penske's been the standout of the Fords for the past few years. I mean, you could argue this year, Ralph Fenway Keselowski still seems odd to say that, but RFK Racing might be the best of the 4 teams. I mean, Brad Hayes got what is it? 4 top 2 finishes in his last 6 races.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski in particular, and RFK, they've been very strong all throughout the year. When you look back towards the last 7 races for Brad Keselowski in particular, he has 4 finishes, a second or better, including the win at Darlington right there. And also only 2 finishes worse than 11th in the last 7 races for Brad K right there. RFK, and we have to even remember, Chris Buescher was close to winning at Darlington and at Kansas. I mean, in Kansas was just a heartbreaker there, losing in the closest finish in NASCAR Cup Series history. So, yeah, RFK, they've been on the upturn.
Yeah, and while Stewart Haas has been on the downturn.
Pretty much.
So,
Penske in front row, they've been kind of just there too. We know Logano, he won the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, so things could potentially be looking up maybe as they're figuring out the new car.
You mean he won the All-Star race and nobody passed him in the All-Star race?
Yes. You see, I was trying to put it lightly as the simple fact is he did win that race, but yeah, he did dominate that, leading all but one lap at North Wilkesboro.
So with Stuart Haas abandoning ship? What does this leave Stuart Haas's drivers? Chase Briscoe, Noah Gregson, Ryan Preece, and Josh Berry. Where do you see those guys going?
And let's not even forget about the two Xfinity drivers as well, Cole
Oh
Custer
yeah,
and
Cole
Riley
Custer's
Herbst.
the reigning Xfinity champ.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I've heard some rumors and discussion around some of these drivers. Particularly, I've heard a lot of talk about Cole Custer ending up at Front Row Motorsports, replacing McDowell in the 34 next season. And we do know the news did come out about Front Row obtaining a third charter officially. Now, they did not say who they got the charter from, but we know they have a third charter. I think it's pretty likely that one of the remaining SHR Cup drivers is going to end up in that ride. I think it's either going to be Barry or Noah Gregson, but in that particular ride,
If
because
not,
where
if
I've
not,
heard,
if not two of them, maybe.
yeah, well, right now I think we know Cole Custer is one of the strongest names attached to one of those front row rides, particularly the 34, just because of the potential link that there's been a lot of talk about Custer to the 34. And with just one other charter that they have, at least guaranteed, we know they're probably going to scoop up another one of those drivers. According to other rumors that I've heard that Chase Briscoe is one of the favorites in order to land at the Wood Brothers number 21, replacing Harrison Burton. There, Dylan.
Yeah, I've heard the same rumors with Chase in the 21. And be honest with you, I mean, Chase has got some good finishes. I mean, he's good on short tracks and road course. And it seems like every time I see Harrison Burton race, he's either doing one or two things: getting lapped or involved in a crash.
Yeah, Harrison has just not been brilliant this year. He only has one single top 10 finish, and even then, that was at Talladega where he finished 10th. So the performance has just not been there. Harrison's just not really panning out. He's been an experiment, yes, but I don't think he's not gonna stay there another year.
No, no, unfortunately, I don't see that thing. But you know what? While everybody was focused on the Coke 600, there was somebody hoping to try the Indy Charlotte Double for the first time in a decade. Well, unless you were hiding under your umbrella or getting struck by lightning, you would have seen Kyle Lawson try the Indy Charlotte Double this past Sunday, and it looked good. I mean, it looked good for a while. I'm like, could Kyle Lawson potentially win Indy and Charlotte on the same day? Well, not if Mother Nature put her say in it.
Yeah, Mother Nature just ruined Larson's attempt at the double right there, delaying the start of the Indy 500 first of all by just a few hours. That it made Larson have to make the decision in order to stay in Indy, which he did end up doing. And although in the IndyCar race, he finished 18th. He did actually run convincingly pretty good, even getting close to the top 5 at some points as well. So he had the speed in order to get himself competitive. He just did not have the right circumstances. Then he got that pit row penalty late that basically just ruined him from getting a good finish. And then he tried going forth towards Charlotte. And, well, you could say, I guess the rain clouds had a vendetta against him because they followed him all the way to Charlotte. And that affected the Cup race, as we know, by ending the NASCAR Cup Series race, the Coke 600, early. And that got called right as Larson got to the track. He never even was able to get into the car the whole time. It was not a double for him. He ended up just doing a single.
Yeah, but Kyle ended up driving more miles than anybody else at Charlotte that night.
Yeah, that's the real crazy thing. He still ended up doing 500 miles there, and oh, and then the others at Charlotte only ran 249. So
Yeah, Kyle finished 18th, but led some laps and was voted Rookie of the Year, although some people may say Kyle didn't deserve it, but that was just name grab. I'm like, Kyle would have finished better than 18th if he hadn't spent on pit road, and Scott Dixon did the same thing 2 years ago.
yeah, pretty much. He had the speed. It was just a matter of just having the right circumstances and not being able to speed ultimately on pit road. That was his undoing. But Larson did say that he'd be open to doing the double again so soon, and I've heard that maybe that the deal that he has in order to do Indy was a 2-year deal, so he might be back next year.
And it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see. I mean, you imagine Kyle. Like, who else would be great at the Indy Charlotte double? I mean, I know somebody who I'd love to see try the Indy Charlotte double in the future. How about another dirt racer?
Hmm. Yeah, I think dirt racers would be able to. They're usually known for being pretty adaptive towards different types of vehicles, so I say why not do another dirt racer?
Tyler Reddick on line one, please.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like that choice there, Dylan. I do
The
like that
Air
one.
the Air Jordan 1100.
Yeah, I like the sound of that right there.
I'm gonna make Air Jordan 1100-mile shoes.
Come on, let's pitch it to Reddick and Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin there. Let's make it happen.
Heck, they might have another team by next year.
Yeah, that's true. According to Bob Pockris of Fox Sports, who already was discussing about the charters through Twitter, through X, or whatever you want to call it, he said that all three of the four charters apparently have already been reportedly bought up. This is not confirmed through press releases yet. This is just what he was saying from his sources. That one of them was sold to Front Row, which we know Front Row, they made public that they did acquire one. They just haven't said from who. The other two are said to be for Trackhouse Racing and 2311 Racing.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, 23 and 49. What other numbers did Jordan have?
Well, that I'm gonna have to think and refresh on my Jordan knowledge there, but it would not surprise me if they end up using maybe the 67 because I've seen them use that number a couple times for different drivers for one-off stints, like Travis Pastrana in last year's Daytona 500, for example.
Or Kobayashi when he runs a road course.
That's true. Although he did run the 50 at Coda earlier this year because that was a Mobile One call.
Oh gosh, and didn't he and Stenhouse get into it?
Yeah, both of the two starts that Kobayashi was in. The first time at the Indy Road Course, I believe it was, or with the Charlotte Roval, and then the second time at Coda earlier in the year.
Hey, at least he didn't get fined for fighting.
That's true, because no punches were thrown then.
By the way, usually I'm the one asking questions, but now you've got one for me.
Yes, that's right. So there is a lot of discussion about the whole Kyle Larson double situation because he technically did not race at Charlotte at all. NASCAR has a rule where they say that in order to be eligible for the NASCAR playoffs, you have to start every single race. You cannot miss any unless you get a waiver. Now, the question that I have for you is, was Larson right for just choosing to stay and run the Indianapolis 500 and not race the Coke 600, knowing that he technically did not start the Coke 600 at all? Do you think he gets the waiver? What do you think?
1000% Kyle Lawson should have just run the Indy 500 with how much time, effort, and money was put in, not just by Hendrick Motorsports, but McLaren. You put in big names with Rick Hendrick, Jeff Andrews, Jeff Gordon, Zach Brown. Kyle Lawson should have and needed to run the Indy 500. Nobody remembers who won the Coke 600 in 1993 unless you're a diehard NASCAR fan. But I bet you 400,000 people remember who won the 93 Indy 500. Kyle Lawson. And it's not like Kyle Lawson went to Monaco for the weekend. He ran the Indy 500. I'm just saying, for NASCAR, it would have been a huge publicity. And it's not like Kyle was hurt. He just ran another race. Kyle would have been at Charlotte if not for that gun Mother Nature.
Yeah, that is true. Mother Nature was just ruined his whole plan right there and even just kind of followed him. So that did not work out for him at all. But what about the discussion about the waiver as it is? Do you think NASCAR should maybe consider making changes towards how the waiver system and waivers are handed out as a result of situations like this with what Kyle Larson is dealing with there, Dylan?
If guys compete, guys should try and compete every race possible. I get why Eric Jones missed a couple races with his injury. Chase Elliott missing a quarter of the season with his broken leg, and then wrecking Denny Hamlin at a Charlotte. Everybody's going to look back at Kyle Busch when he won the 2015 title. It's like Kyle Busch would have been in the car if not for his leg being broken at Daytona.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But then when he came back, he just went on a tear and ended up winning 3 of the next 4 races he started in that year.
I remember Kyle winning, passing Jimmy Johnson at Snow. I'm like, what? He did that coming back from a broken leg where you turn left, right, and center?
Yeah, and all around, and he just made it work right there.
And I'm like, not bad for a guy with a broken leg.
Yeah, but Kyle, we know Busch, we know he's a wheel man. If you give him the right amount of car, you give him the right equipment, he's going to be able to wheel that thing to be as competitive as it gets. So
maybe not this year though, because OCO has been.
Yeah, but you can attribute that maybe a little bit more towards the team rather than the driver, perhaps.
Yeah, using my favorite golf terminology, Austin Dillon couldn't hit water if he fell off a boat.
Yeah, that 3 card, Austin, when you give him the right equipment, he is a playoff caliber driver. He can point his way and make the playoffs. He's done that for years before.
A playoff caliber driver, his 4 wins have all been fluky.
Like, in the sense that he can point his way into the playoffs. He's not going to be the driver that can get you like multiple win seasons. He hasn't proven he could do that, but he's like the sort of driver that could end up getting a team into the playoffs if the equipment is good enough. I think he can be about as good as the equipment is if you just get him in the right circumstances. He's proven that before. Even if it's a season where he hasn't won a race, he's still made his way into the playoffs on points before, on more than one occasion too.
True, and but this year, the only way Austin Dillon gets into the playoffs is if he wins a race, and right now RCR has shown nothing that he can win a race.
Yeah, RCR is just off as a whole this year, at least on the Cup side of things. If this was the Xfinity Series, this would be a way different story, but yeah, their Cup program definitely has not been looking the best this year.
Yeah, by the way, we're little past halfway in the regular season, just completing Coke 600. So I think if we look at like who's doing well and who's not so well, let's see. I wonder who's doing well this year. Well, William Byron's got 3 wins. Shocker. Denny Hamlin's got 3 wins. Shocker. Kyle Lawson's got 2 wins. Surprise. I mean, Crystal Bell just picked up the second win in the Cup 600.
Yep.
Anybody else I miss? I mean, Brad Kay's been hotter than a firecracker lately.
Yeah, Brad's been hot, but if there's 2 other drivers there that haven't been getting as much attention for winning, especially because one of these drivers I'm about to name has not won, but these are drivers that have been putting themselves into the picture and being very consistent. 2 drivers to mention, Martin
sure
Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott.
Wait, Chase won Texas.
Yeah, I'm saying one of the 2 drivers did not win, and that was Truex. He hasn't won yet this year, but both of these drivers have been super duper consistent so far this year. Especially Elliott. He has the best average finish of all drivers this year so far after 14 races of 9.6. So there you go.
I mean, what I've seen from Chase this year is that he's not been great necessarily every single race, but he's like Matt Kenseth thing. You know, if Chase Elliott's car can run 7th, he's running 7th. You might see Kyle Lawson win racing or William Byron, but they throw in a clunker once in a while. I mean, Truex seemingly is due for a win because he's done everything but win. You could argue he probably should have won Richmond if everyone behaved. We could have won a couple other races, but I feel like a win's coming from Truex.
Yeah, although the last 3 races haven't exactly gone Truex's way, he definitely has a team that is capable of putting together a good run at a moment's notice. I mean, Truex, he's second in the Cup Series standings right now as it is too, which just goes to show how consistent he's been overall this year. He's has 7 top 10 finishes, and ultimately the second best average finish of all drivers of 10.3, which is kind of crazy, especially with looking back towards other stats. Like, he's got the 3rd most laps led, 445. The only 2 drivers that have led more than Truex at races this year are Hamlin and Larson, and as we know, both of those drivers have won multiple races now this year. They're Dylan.
Yeah, something doesn't add up. Is this going to be another 2022 where Martin Truex like ends up second or third in the regulars in points, but yet doesn't make the playoffs?
Well, we'll have to see. There's a bunch of tracks that do play into Truex's hand overall coming up. We got Sonoma, which historically Truex has been pretty good there in the past. And also the short track program that Joe Gibbs Racing has been good. So he could be an intriguing driver to consider over at Iowa in order to win.
Yeah, especially with what he's done at Richmond, also throwing Loudon.
Yeah, that is very true as well. And you could even throw Nashville in there too while we're at it. So
that's if Ross Chastain doesn't win that race.
That is true. Trackhouse is pretty good at Nashville, and they always mark that down as a big race because their organization definitely holds some operations over there. But I do want to also mention this one thing about Chase Elliott as well. Did you know that Chase Elliott is now the only driver to have finished inside the top 20 in every race this year?
Not bad.
The only driver.
Wait, but Kyle Lawson would have wrecked at Darlington, so he's not on that. Who would have been the other guy?
The next closest driver right now towards getting the most top 20 finishes is Truex. He only finished outside the top 20 once, and that was at Darlington.
Oh yeah. I think wasn't Truex involved in one of those crashes?
He was.
Mm-hmm.
Elliott is the only driver to finish top 20 in every single points-paying race this year.
Well, this week NASCAR returns to Gateway for the 3rd straight year, and to be honest with you, this might be the most important qualifying of the year because I mean, if you saw the Monaco Grand Prix and how difficult passing is not easy at Gateway, my friend.
Yeah, that is for sure. It's a unique sort of track where it kind of has qualities of a shorter track, but they're running the intermediate rules package over at Gateway this week, so it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers are able to work this through. But we can use tracks like, say, Phoenix, for example, because some drivers do say that Worldwide Technology Raceway or Gateway, whatever you want to call it, St. Louis, does have some comparisons towards Phoenix in particular.
Maybe that's why Joey Logano won the 2022 title, because didn't he win Gateway, then Phoenix that year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is exactly the case.
And then I think he finished second there last year, right?
Let me see. I want to say yeah, he did. He did. No, he actually finished third last year. He won in 2022 and finished third last year.
I knew he finished. Yeah, I know Kyle Busch won last year's race. Who was second though?
It was Hamlin.
It helps to not have Ross Chastain putting you in the wall halfway through the race, right?
You got that right.
So, obviously, there's talk about some of these tracks, not necessarily providing great action. I mean, we saw some crazy finishes at Atlanta, and even crazier. I can't believe if Atlanta's finish was crazy, and Kansas said, hold my beer. I'm going to create the greatest finish in NASCAR history." Darlington was chaotic. So, but here's an interesting question: If you could take off one track on the current NASCAR schedule, what would it be, and what would you replace it with?
That is a very interesting question. Are we talking about like tracks that have two dates and just giving them one, or just entirely off the schedule?
Off the schedule.
Tough call because there's a few contenders, but I do want to say that I think overall I'm leaning towards maybe Texas, just because out of all the mile and a halves, that is by pretty much the weakest one. All the other mile and a half tracks are great. They deliver great racing, but Texas, even though it ended up bringing a race that wasn't too bad, it still is kind of the weakest link of all of them, and just the racing there has been very hit or miss. So that's the one I take off.
And it seems, and I mean, I don't know what it was, but the guy running in second place always ended up in the wall in the late restarts.
Yeah, and that was the case between both the Xfinity and Cup races that weekend, which is nuts.
Yeah, and how about that? Well, at least we had a great Xfinity finish between Sam Mayer and Ryan
Ryan
Sieg.
Sieg. I remember that because that week I had a bet running on Ryan Sieg in order to win that race, and just to see it lost at that, he was about 80-1 to win, plus 8,000. Such a heartbreaker, man. Such a heartbreaker.
It's tough because this track is done because Richmond's known as the action track, but Richmond has been more dominant than an Alaskan track during the middle of a blizzard.
Yeah, you see, this is why I also ask about I asked the question about if it's just reducing a track that has two dates to one, or if it's just taking one entirely off, because I was immediately thinking of Richmond that it should only get one date, if anything. Two dates with the racing that it's been putting on, not for me, man, not for me.
I mean, it's a race of when guys are going to make pit stops, not bumping into each other.
Yeah, the track hasn't delivered some of the quality action racing that they advertise or try to push forward since about, really, you could say the mid 2010s, as late as that, really.
So then, what track would you want to see maybe back on the season? Oh, added to this season.
I would like to see Chicagoland come back just because there's been a lot of good races there, even especially before they took it off the schedule just to experiment around with the Chicago street course. I think Chicagoland, the mile and a half, was one of the better ones, and the racing was usually pretty good there ultimately.
Especially with this call, because we've seen what the finishes at Darlington and Kansas.
Yeah. The next gen does very well at mile and a halfs. We saw what it could do at a great mile and a half track at Kansas right there. I mean, Kansas was one of the best races this year. I think we can get something similar to that over at a track like Chicagoland.
Yeah, I mean, but what I think almost having two races in the Chicago area might be too much.
I do think that overall that NASCAR venues should mainly get one race a year with a few exceptions like say Daytona or Talladega or anything that has a crown jewel attached to it like Bristol for example. So, but other than that, most tracks should get one day unless I say the track itself within that area is different.
All provides great racing. Like I don't think anybody would complain about Kansas getting two races, or anybody would complain about Darlington getting two races. People might complain about. Oh wait, why did Phoenix get? Why does Phoenix get the championship race? But that's a story for another show.
Yeah, which I mean, Phoenix is, you could do worse than Phoenix, but it is in Homestead. I'm just gonna. That's all I'll say on that point right there.
As a Florida native, I'm a Florida native. You and I are on the same page there, boss.
I do get why they host the championship over at Phoenix, especially because the facility itself and the area is filled with a lot of diehard fans of NASCAR. But I think as far as the racing itself is concerned, it's just very meh.
Plus you have after the race, you just go to South Beach.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's the way to do it right there, Dylan.
I'll go drink my champagne on the beach.
Yes. Sounds like a nice, relaxing time.
Yeah. So thanks for hopping on, Sean. Tune into us here with Sean and Rich Mulatto's his name.
Rich Mileto.
Rich Mulatto tomorrow night when they host their weekly fantasy and a NASCAR show. I've been a guest there. It's fun. Talk about paint schemes, everything, and then some.
Yep. For those curious, you can find it over at the Elite Plus Network on YouTube. You can also go over to FantasyGuru.com to get any of me or Rich Mileto's NASCAR content. We cover each of the three races every week. Also do our own bets and do our own help people with lineups in Discord. So you can go over there to FantasyGuru.com. You can find out more, get one of the packages, and be able to get the information and be ready to have some fun.